Hello friends, how are you? Today Pakistan is in the deeper economic crisis and we are so desperate to get some of the money from the IMF. And if at all, unfortunately, the IMF does not come up with a package, then in we will have to face the music. We are in the deep trouble, and that sort of negotiations are going on between Pakistani government, between the finance ministry and the IMF, and it is hoped that a sort of bailout package will be released by the IMF because we are the government of Pakistan has implemented some of the dictations, rather I shall say, instead of the recommendations I shall call as the dictation. That has already been implemented, and the remaining dictations will also be implemented. For that reason, I can see with the confidence that a kind of bailout package will be released by the IMF. Now we need to know, all of the people of Pakistan, we need to know that why there are such a sort of crisis, economic crisis in the Pakistan, why the IMF could not come, why the IMF and Pakistani government were at odds with each other, were at poles apart. That is what we need to do. During the previous government, when the Mr. IK NIAZI was the Prime Minister of Pakistan, and a kind of negotiations were going on between the IMF and the Pakistani government, and that time too, the IMF was saying and recommending that the government of Pakistan, the finance ministry of Pakistan, should further increase the prices of the petroleum products. Why? Because of the raise in the at the international standard, but because the Pakistani government, instead of increasing it, they rather further reduced it. Why did they do that? They did that because IK Niazi, Prime Minister at that time, was very much sure that he is going to leave the government and his government is not going to survive, and there is going to be an in-house change by a no confidence move. And keeping in view that IK Niazi, instead of increasing the prices of the oil, they further reduced it and reduced a lot. And for that reason, there was the depletion, and it was the national exchequer became empty. Why? Because that much of the subsidy, which was absolutely unaffordable, and due to that reason, the IMF, cut off all their contacts with the Pakistan and refused to give a kind of bailout package, a kind of loan that was absolutely necessary. So the next government, the PDM government, they too didn't increase the price, thinking that the public of Pakistan will become very much against them. So, keeping this thing in view, they too didn't do that, and for that reason, what did happen, that the finance that the finance became the finance the national exchequer became quite empty. And then there was another then there were several other recommendations, or call it the dictation from the IMF. One of that was that you do have to allow the free float of Pak rupee against the other currencies. Mean you cannot keep the control, the government of Pakistan cannot keep the control over that. So now the government have also implemented that reform as well, apart from raising the prices of the petroleum products. For that reason, the negotiations between the finance ministry of Pakistan and between the IMF has restarted, and it is expected that the Pakistani government will be able to fulfill or to act upon the remaining recommendations, or call it the dictation, by the IMF. And if at all Pakistan government does implement all the recommended reforms suggested, rather rather ordered by the PM, by the IMF, then only there will be a kind of bailout package by the IMF, and Pakistan will be able to get a kind of bailout, and there will be no default like situation. I think that is absolutely necessary. Now the Pakistani economy is dependent upon the IMF, the loans of IMF, and whatever they recommend, whatever they suggest, whatever they order, whatever kind of dictation do they, throw upon us, we are bound to act upon that. Otherwise, there will be no option left but to go for a default. That is an absolute collapse of the Pakistani economy, which will be unbearable at all. Unbearable at all. I think at the moment there are only two options in front of the Finance Ministry of Pakistan, in front of the PDM government of Pakistan, and that is to absolutely implement the recommendations, the dictations by the IMF are to get ready for the default. As for the default is concerned, that will create quite a chaotic situation in the country, and obviously there will be a free fall of Pak rupee, and people will be carrying plenty of money, but they will not be able to buy even the smaller things. So that sort of situation is quite a horrible one, and it must be avoided. Dear friends and fellows in Pakistan, I think if at all whatever is recommended or dictated by the IMF, the Pakistani government must take it, and must put it into the practice, and that is maybe the only option, the only viable option left for the government of Pakistan. Although as a result of this, the PDM government is going to be very unpopular, and despite all that unpopularity, I think if at all a kind of default is taken place in presence of this PDM government, then the situation and then the popularity will further drown as for this PDM. Actually, PMLN is concerned, because PMLN have to bear the brunt, and that there will be a very difficult position in the coming general election as far the PMLN is concerned. Maybe they will not be left with any sort of, there will be very little votes being casted in favor of the PMLN, and PTI is expected to sweep the coming election. Why? Because of all that trap which were laid by the previous government, by the government of IK NIAZI, by the government of PTI.